The ocean was calm in a way that felt wrong long before it felt dangerous. There were no rolling waves, no irregular motion on the surface, no familiar rhythm that usually defines open water. Instead, the sea appeared flat and continuous, stretching endlessly toward the horizon like a solid plane. The boundary between water and sky was thin and distant, almost motionless, as if the world itself had paused. A large cruise ship moved steadily through this stillness. Its engines produced a low, constant vibration that traveled through the hull, but the water around it barely reacted. The wake behind the ship was narrow and unusually clean, fading quickly, as if the ocean were unwilling to hold any trace of movement. On board, the atmosphere was calm and routine. Passengers occupied the outer decks, leaning against railings, standing quietly, watching the empty expanse ahead. Some spoke in low voices, others remained silent, absorbed by the scale of the sea. Cameras were raised, then lowered again. There was little to capture, except space and light. Inside the vessel, operations followed a familiar rhythm. Crew members moved through corridors, performing standard checks. Navigation systems showed no anomalies. Engine output remained stable. Course and speed were maintained without adjustment. Weather data confirmed what everyone could already see. No storms, no pressure systems, no visible disturbances within hundreds of kilometers. Conditions were classified as optimal. Yet experienced maritime crews understand that the absence of surface activity does not mean the absence of motion. The ocean is layered, structured, and dynamic far below the visible surface. What appears calm above can mask immense movement beneath. Several kilometers below the ship, beyond the reach of sonar detail and human perception, vast bodies of water were slowly shifting. Pressure was redistributing vertically through the depths, compressing some layers while releasing others. This movement produced no waves, no sound, no vibration strong enough to reach the surface. It was a silent process. Above, life continued unchanged. Footsteps echoed softly against metal decks. Glass doors opened and closed. The ship advanced forward, carrying thousands of people who had no reason to feel concern. The horizon remained wide and empty, offering no visual warning, no change in color or shape. Even the air felt still. The ocean did not signal danger. It did not accelerate or retreat. It simply held its calm. And in deep water, that kind of calm is not neutral. It is often the condition that allows something far larger to begin forming unseen. The change began quietly. The gentle movement beneath the ship weakened until it was barely noticeable. The familiar rise and fall of the ocean faded, leaving the vessel resting on an unnaturally stable surface. For most passengers, it felt like nothing at all, just an unusual stillness. On the bridge, systems continued to report normal conditions. Speed and heading remained unchanged. Weather data showed no developing storms, yet a minor inconsistency appeared in pressure readings, small, irregular, and persistent. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to raise concern. Outside, the sea looked different. Light no longer reflected evenly from the surface. The water appeared heavier, darker, almost dense. The horizon began to lose its clarity, bending slightly, as if distance itself were being compressed. Far ahead, the ocean started to rise. There were no waves forming, no breaking crests. Instead, the water lifted as a single mass, slowly and steadily, growing taller with each passing moment. At first, it could be mistaken for a visual distortion, but the shape continued to build, impossible to ignore. The ship altered course slightly, though the adjustment had little meaning. Movement across the surface offered no protection against a force that was developing vertically. By the time the anomaly was fully visible, its scale had already surpassed response. The horizon had become a wall. The ocean was no longer calm, it was preparing to move. When the water finally moved, it did not explode forward. It advanced with certainty. The immense wall ahead began to collapse inward, transforming height into pressure. The ship met the force not as an impact, but as compression. The bow lifted unnaturally, twisted sideways, as if the vessel were being adjusted rather than attacked. Steel structures groaned under loads far beyond design limits. Exterior decks folded inward. Glass failed instantly, shattering without resistance. Power systems shut down one after another. Lights vanished. Screens went dark. The ship lost orientation as gravity shifted unevenly through its interior. Floors became steep planes. Corridors turned into barriers. Movement inside was no longer possible, only sliding, falling, bracing. Yet from the outside, everything remained disturbingly controlled. The ocean did not surge or churn. There was no violent spray, no chaotic turbulence. The water moved forward in a single, continuous mass, wrapping around the hull and forcing it downward. The ship was no longer displacing the sea. It was being absorbed into it. Water entered through ruptures along the structure, not as flooding, but as complete takeover. Compartments filled instantly under pressure. Air pockets collapsed. The vessel ceased to function as a ship and became a descending object, carried by forces that did not slow or accelerate. There was no defining moment of destruction, no final break, no dramatic separation. The ship simply lost relevance. As the surface closed above it, the remaining structure was pulled downward into darkness. Depth increased rapidly. Pressure erased form and volume. Within minutes, nothing identifiable remained. Above, the ocean corrected itself. The surface flattened. Movement softened. Light returned to familiar patterns. An outside observer, the sea appeared unchanged, calm, empty, uninterrupted. No debris surfaced, no signal remained, no mark identified the location. Later, ships could pass through the same coordinates without hesitation. Clear readings, normal conditions, an empty horizon. The ocean does not document what it takes. It does not preserve memory. It resets, vast, indifferent, complete. And somewhere far below the surface, what once moved confidently across the sea became part of its silence.